Lisa Schnebly Heidinger is celebrating Arizona with lots of interesting people, so you'll hear wonderful voices with new stories. Grab your favorite drink and settle in. We're celebrating Arizona, going everywhere from A to Z, and we're off.
Welcome to Celebrating Arizona. My guest today is, in some ways, the most Sedona resident I know, Andrea Christelle. Welcome, first of all. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me. And I just want to say that that means so much coming from you. I'm deeply appreciative. Thank you, Lisa.
And in a minute, I'm going to have you tell me when and where your Arizona started. But I got to meet you in 2013 when you were in the philosophy department at Northern Arizona University, and I was doing a book about Northern Arizona University, and I got to put you in the book, which was really fun because you had a very creative program, and it was I just love that you got to be in that book, and I hope been your friend ever since.
I think that's certainly my experience is that we've been friends since then. And it was just a great opportunity to meet you. And I'm so happy that I did and that we're still friends.
And you have continued in philosophy and had lots of adventures besides NAU since then. But let's back way up. When and where did your Arizona start?
Well, we don't have to back up too much from there because my Arizona really started here in northern Arizona. So in 2010, I actually came to Page, Arizona first. And I was moving all around the country at that time, exploring different places. And I went on a weekend trip to Sedona. I was going on a camping trip and I just fell in love with Sedona immediately. It was just the most beautiful and captivating place I had ever seen. And I can still remember this very vividly. I was on Red Rock Loop Road. I was on a spot that is called Lover's Knoll. I'm not sure it was called Lover's Knoll then, but I was by myself, eating a little picnic lunch by myself, looking out at Cathedral Rock. And I didn't even know Cathedral Rock was called Cathedral Rock at that time. I just thought, like, wow, this is an amazingly beautiful place. And I just decided I'm moving here with no plan,
Wow.
no job, no connections. And 2 months later, I did, and I've been here ever since.
That is amazing. Which only reinforces what I just said. You were the most Sedonan I know. Man, oh man. You just chose it and it chose you back.
I mean, I think that that's fair to say, and it's been a really wonderful. I always love being here. I especially, even when I'm traveling, my favorite way to come home is to fly into the Flagstaff airport. I also love Flagstaff, and seeing Flagstaff is so beautiful, and it's just a pleasure to fly in and out of the Flagstaff airport. I mean, I think if you could travel from Flagstaff to Flagstaff, I know that sounds ridiculous, but like, travel would be much easier on all of us. But at any rate, like coming home, coming into that airport, and then starting down 89A and seeing all the Ponderosa pines and just the beauty of Flagstaff, and then dipping down into the canyon and just being so grateful every time I come home that I live here and that I'm coming back here. And that's the first way I came into Sedona was through Oak Creek Canyon. Just that amazing
Did you fly
drive.
into Flag?
Um,
No,
oh, when
you
I
were
first came,
driving.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I drove down from Page the first
Okay, that's
time,
right.
but
Okay.
now more often I come into Flag. And anyway, I love coming back to Sedona every time I come back.
That is so great. And tell me and other people, you're doing a couple different things, but I love the fact that you are interested in and care about philosophy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, my background and my training is in philosophy, and like most people who pursue a philosophy degree, teaching seems to be the thing that you do, right? That's the primary path, and I have taught and enjoy teaching, but I've also always been involved with communities through nonprofits. And when I was at Northern Arizona University, I had the opportunity to start a program, which is how we met, philosophy in the public interest. And that was really about taking philosophy out of the classroom and into the community. And doing that, we were working with schools, but we held programs in the Museum of Northern Arizona, the
That's where
Sedona
I went
Public.
for my first one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that so we used to have, community conversations there, and Sedona Public Library. We did salons in private homes, all sorts of ways to make philosophy relevant and relatable to everyday life, which, I mean, let's face it, I'm very aware that most people don't think it's an eminently practical discipline, but in fact it is, because these questions of meaning, value, significance, determining how we should act, what we should do, right? These are questions that we all face, right? And we all have to grapple with. And there is a philosophical base or underlying value commitment to almost everything we do. It's just often unarticulated. So this was really an opportunity to help people engage with philosophical resources on a practical level. But living in Sedona, one of the things that I realized is that I loved doing philosophy on the trail. And I think being in beautiful natural environments like Sedona are the perfect place to engage in philosophical conversations. So, since 2015, my partner and now my husband, Matthew Goodwin, and I have been operating Sedona Philosophy, which is a company that takes people on tours, and we engage in philosophical dialogue on the trails of Sedona.
That is so perfect in absolutely every way. First of all, that you both came from the NAU program and had that shared background and cared about it. And then that you made it even bigger and now have so specs, Sedona Philosophy Experience. And is that the website? Is that where people would find that?
Yes, and the website is just sedonaphilosophy.com.
Oh, I didn't know that. See, we all learn. That's why people should talk. The first time, I think the first time I met you, or maybe a second conversation, you said something like, if I'm at a cocktail party and I tell people what I do, and I don't remember if it was they back away or do you remember that?
Sure, because it's not every day that you meet someone and you say, like, what do you do? And if you say, I'm a philosopher, people are often taken aback. If you say, I'm a teacher, I'm a firefighter, I'm an attorney, these are all careers that people are familiar with, and then they go on with the conversation. But a real conversation stopper can be, I'm a philosopher. and, and
Because I
so
guess, are we picturing columns and a toga and sitting on stairs and not having any idea what the right question to ask would be?
I think so, and I think people just aren't familiar with, like, what. That's right. Then what do you do? How do I ask you about that? And I'm kind of afraid to ask you about that, right? So I think there's a little bit of that too, and then also there's sometimes confusion. So sometimes people will talk for a little bit and they will say, so you're a psychologist, right? Just because being a
Okay.
psychologist is much more common than being a philosopher. So I just think it's not a person who practices a profession that people often come in contact with.
That makes perfect sense. And with Sedona philosophy, um, what I'm picturing a convention, a group, and they book you and you take people somewhere and do something. Can you fill that in?
Sure. So primarily, we work with some of the tourists. We have 3 to 5 million visitors that come to Sedona every year, and so often we take people on private tours individuals, couples, families, but they're all private tours. They're all people that know each other already. And we choose a trail that's suitable for the group. We do
Ah,
have a program that's called an easy walk because not everyone coming to Sedona necessarily wants to climb to the top of a big mountain. I mean, some people do, and that's great, and we can accommodate that. But very often, people just want an accessible way to get closer to the land. And so we offer that, and then just engage in a dialogue. That is really led by the interests of the people that arrive. If they merely want to learn more about Sedona, we can definitely talk about that, and that is often the case. But very often, people are coming to Sedona for some particular personal reason, a transition in their life, or sometimes a challenge. And if they want to talk that through, then we do that and use the resources of philosophy, maybe to draw some insights. But it's not a set program at all. It's very much a dynamic interchange with the people that are right there doing something that's meaningful and relevant to them.
that is so great. And I can't believe I haven't done that yet. I see you anyway, but but I haven't ever actually experienced the program, and I need to do that. And you took me to the
I think maybe we went to the Buddha Stupa. I think
that's what
we,
it was.
yeah,
Thank you.
yes, we did do that near Thunder Mountain. So, but one of the things, Lisa, I mean, I'm sure you've talked about on this program from time to time, but I don't know how often it comes up. And one of the reasons it's so special for me to know you is your own personal family connection to Sedona. And I just wonder if you would say a little bit about that because I just think it's so amazing that you are from the lineage of Sedona directly. So
Sure. And I
yeah.
think I grew up around my dad, Sedona's grandson, and you never brag, partly because we didn't do anything to earn that. It's like, oh, am I special? Well, no, I'm not. I just happened to be lucky where I started.
Well, I think
Um,
you're special, very
well, thank
special.
you. So yes, Larry, my dad, was Sedona and TC's grandson, and grew up a lot with them because his dad was a teacher. And so sometimes he would, Larry's dad would go off to Fredonia or God knows where to do a teaching stint, not take the family. And Larry would stay with grandma and grandpa. And I wish well, I don't wish I'd been born sooner. Everything would be different. But I didn't get to meet them. They both went on before I got here. But when I was little, if you've been to the museum, and you probably have, Andrea, there's a portrait of her that Helen Jordan painted in a blue dress in front of some red rocks. And it was always in my grandpa's study. And I would see it when I came up and I would look at it. And then I'd go outside and stand in front of some red rocks and think, I hope I look like her. I hope I look like her. The idea that she was a pioneer was just so compelling. And when I was little, I hated knowing I would never get to be a pioneer. It was just better to be a pioneer, and we couldn't do that. And fortunately, what I didn't know when I was little is there are still so many adventures to be had. And then getting to be a reporter in Northern Arizona and getting to go to and cover all the stories in your and my country, Flagstaff, Sedona, the Grand Canyon,
Oh,
all the
yes.
reservation country, and I know you've worked the reservations, was perfect and in some ways better than pioneering because I have more amenities and air conditioning.
Yes, and air conditioning is certainly important these days. But I just have to comment because you said, you wish that you looked like her, but she looks like you because in addition to the museum in Sedona, we have the Sedona Public Library, right? And you are the model, right, for the beautiful bronze
Yes, I
sculpture
am.
of Sedona Schnebly. It's a gorgeous piece, and there are regular tours that come through there, jeep tours. I mean, that's a signpost landmark in Sedona. So
That's true. You're
yeah,
right.
that
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel really lucky to get to be connected. And so that's for darn sure. And my dad's gone. One of his sisters is still with us, Pat. She's done a lot over the years as the granddaughter. And yeah, it's pretty fun.
And then your own daughter, Sedona, right? Of course, another
Yes,
Sedona is on the museum board right now. So your family is still like very connected here. You
that's
know.
true. Yeah. I can't believe every cousin born before her wasn't named Sedona. I thought, why would anybody not do that? How could you not do that? But it was nice. I mean, then she doesn't have to say I'm Sedona H. She's just Sedona. And yes, it's great to have her on the board. I love that. And our son Rai was a philosophy major, and that was fun. I
We know
still read the
that.
Daily Stoic, Andrea. I am still I'm a slow learner. I think this is the third year I've read it, and I'm still not even mastering some of the basics, working some of the basics. But I figure it's better to work them than to not work them, right?
I mean, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Like reading a little bit every day and working a little bit every day is the way I think philosophy really properly like enriches a life. It's not, we often think of it as a college class that you take and you're done with it or something, or a stable view you have your philosophy. But that's really, when we go back to the foundations of philosophy and think about it, it was a practice, right? Not just to memorize texts or to prove you could master a body of knowledge. It was supposed to help us with our lives, right? And understanding ourselves and understanding other
Okay.
people and understanding the world around us and helping us make good decisions. And of course, instead of like a set of facts, there is no set of facts that can help us do that, right? It's wisdom and judgment that we cultivate over time. And so these opportunities for reflection, consideration, recognizing the difficulty, the challenges, also the joys and celebrations that we have in our life, like how should we handle that? How do we cope with that? And so I think daily reflecting on something is the perfect way to do that. And I often say that philosophy is like philosophy practice. When we think about it as a practice, I will
Mm-hmm.
compare it to a yoga practice. Because a lot of people do
Okay.
yoga. Yeah, and you show up every day on your mat where you are. And some days you feel great, and other days you feel kind of blah, right?
Yeah.
And but by practicing every day, right, it does help our overall sense of health and well-being. And I think a philosophy practice is like that, just the way that a yoga practice is.
I love that. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk about some of the specific places in Arizona that resonate to you. So hold the thought.
Sounds great.
Another Arizona treasure is the DeGrazia Gallery, started by Tucson artist Ted DeGrazia in the Catalina foothills on 10 acres he called the Gallery in the Sun. The Mission in the Sun there has rock floors and interior murals. The gift shop has lots of images reproduced from his famous work, prints, ceramics, sculptures. The artist's home still stands there, and collections of his work rotate through. On the National Register of Historic Districts for the Adobe construction, and you don't see many Ocotillo floors other places. Worth seeing. All right. Talk to me about some of the places you care about, and obviously Sedona is one.
Sedona is a very special one. So let's talk about Sedona first, but we can also talk about the Grand Canyon and some of the other amazing places in Arizona.
Yeah.
But but I will say one of the things I think that's amazing about Sedona, and we always think about the red rocks and the beauty and the landscape, but I think that no less significant is actually the name itself. And so we were talking about your, personal family connection to that name. And one of my favorite stories is how Sedona got its name. So um,
Oh.
maybe I'll try to tell my version of that
Yeah,
story,
I'd
and
love to hear your
you can
version.
correct me because I know you're the historian among us. So I'll tell you my version, and then you let me know
Fun. Yes.
if it's correct. But um, So TC and Sedona Schnebly came this way from Missouri, and they had a boarding house, and they welcomed people, and people stayed there, and they cooked for them, and they also had an agricultural enterprise, and they were both really very enterprising. And TC said he wanted to get he wanted to get this place, Oak Creek, on the map, and so applied to the U.S. Postmaster for a designation so that they could have a postal delivery station. And the
Exactly.
name originally proposed was Schnebly Station. Right?
Very
T.C.
good.
Schnebly, like most guys, wants to name the place after himself, preserve that name. Lisa Schnebly Heidinger, Schnebly Station. We almost had that, right? But my understanding is the postmaster wrote back and said, yes, we think that we should have a postal delivery station there. However, the name Schnebly Station is too long. And so we need a different name. And my understanding is that TC's brother said, like, well, why don't we name it after Dona? And in saying that, like, the name Sedona was then proposed and accepted, and everyone just thinks that it's the perfect name for this place. Like, it just
Oh,
sounds right. It fits perfect. Like, the sound like sits the right way on the land, and the beauty of the place is, I think, enhanced through the beauty of this name. And I think it's kind of a magical or Sedona moment story itself, in that it is such an unusual name, and that her mother just chose that unusual name, that none of the
yeah,
other siblings had unusual names,
yeah.
and that they came here, and that is how Sedona was named in 1902. So there's my version. Let me
It,
know how I did.
you were letter perfect. I couldn't have done better. Really, that is
Doubt that.
darned impressive because every single thing you said was exactly. And wow, very cool. Now, when you just mentioned a Sedona moment, I understand that, but elaborate for people who don't who don't know that.
Sure. So, I mean, Sedona has a reputation, right, as a sort of magical, metaphysical, mystical place, and we can talk more about that, because I think that leans both ways. It very much is all those things. It's certainly been inspiring and healing and wonderful for me all these years, but that gets. I don't know, maybe this is too strong a word, but abused a little bit too. I mean,
Oh
there are
yeah.
some, you
Now
know,
go into that. Say that.
well, I just think that sometimes if people make claims that can't be supported necessarily when it comes to Sedona, and I don't want to, call out anything specifically, but I think, when it comes to any kind of spirituality or mysticism, it's a very personal thing. And I think that there are some less credible actors, let's say, that try to maybe take advantage of people, or this landscape. Um, but at any rate, before I was going to say that, I think we were just talking about the importance of the name itself and how it reflects the natural beauty. And I think that's very important. I now
And you had
remember
mentioned a Sedona moment.
a Sedona moment. A Sedona moment is just known as a coincidence or seeming coincidence. And like so many seeming coincidences, and I think you told me the other day that Larry, your father, said that a coincidence is God smiling or something like that.
Yeah, his original quote was, "A coincidence is when God wants to remain anonymous."
When God wants to remain anonymous. Okay. So that's a Sedona moment, is just a wonderful coincidence. And so I think that the naming of Sedona itself was a kind of Sedona moment, right? That this woman would come here from Missouri, that she would have this amazingly beautiful name, that it just so happens that this is, without a doubt, the perfect name for this place. Like, that is God remaining anonymous, perhaps, or perhaps taking center stage, who knows? But I think that the fact that this beautiful place is named what it is couldn't be more fitting.
Well, I loved what you just said about how it lays on the land. That is a gorgeous phrase. Mercy, woman. You have a talent with words. You do. That's
So
fantastic.
that's because I'm out here talking all the time.
Okay, well, let's branch out a little bit and besides Sedona, where else draws you?
The Grand Canyon, and I didn't visit the Grand Canyon until I moved here. I was in my late 30s the first time that I went to the Grand Canyon, and I was just overcome. I mean, what an amazing place. And you know, also really striking aesthetically, but in a different way than Sedona. But the Grand Canyon is certainly a place in Arizona. I'm sure all sorts of people have come on here talking about the places in Arizona that resonate with them and have spoken about the Grand Canyon. It's just, one of the seven natural wonders, we say, of the world, but such a deep and profound place to connect with ourselves and with the unknowability of the world and the universe in some ways. I mean, we just get to the core of things when we're in the canyon.
That is lovely. Beautifully put.
And I think I will share a quote. I think this is hilarious. That is a local Sedona saying, which is God made the Grand Canyon, but lives in Sedona.
I had not heard that. That's fun.
And I think it really gets to the accessibility and the livability of Sedona. I mean, it's a very beautiful place, and some people say like the most beautiful place in the world. I would say that it is that to me, but it's also a very friendly place. I mean, I can go out on the trails by myself in Sedona and feel confident, and people do. And there's wildlife, of course, but nothing too terribly dangerous. I mean, it's really a safe and welcoming and nurturing space. And I think that compared to the Grand Canyon, I mean, we all want to explore the Grand Canyon. I know you've done several Colorado River trips, and that's an amazing experience. Hiking through the canyon is also an amazing experience, but it is. I wouldn't call it friendly. I would call it transformational. I would call it difficult. I would call it challenging. It's meaningful in a way that isn't necessarily comfortable, but is really profound. And so I think that these differences between Sedona and the Grand Canyon, I mean, they're both powerful, profound places. We take people to both in Sedona philosophy, but they're very different kinds of experiences. And I actually think that philosophically, like philosophy can help us understand that. I often draw a distinction that I got from Matt initially, actually, which is the distinction between the beautiful and the sublime. We say that Sedona is beautiful. We can fully appreciate it. We can gaze out upon it and just appreciate, right, this wonderful aesthetic space. The Grand Canyon is sublime in that it's also aesthetically very appealing, the subject for many artists, but also kind of terrifying, right? And
Interesting.
yeah, and so the Grand Canyon, like where we want to go up and we want to get close, and then we're like, whoa, I better not get too close because that edge is real. And we've all probably read, Death in the Grand Canyon, a great volume, much more entertaining than it sounds, right? Right? But
Yeah.
that the risks there are real, and that it's just a different kind of place, I would say.
You
What do
put
you
that
think? I'm
beautifully. I
curious.
think that's yeah, and I guess to sum up what I think you're saying is there is an intimacy to Sedona
Mhm.
that the
Yes.
Grand Canyon isn't the same at all. Yeah, it's vast and amazing, but you're right. There's a welcoming aspect to Oak Creek Canyon,
Yeah.
an accessibility that
Yeah.
that is very different.
Yes.
Do you mind talking about that you and Matt now are partners?
No, I'm happy to talk about that. So, Matt Goodwin and I started Sedona Philosophy together in 2015. We've been together for 15 years, but just a few months ago we got married, which was really special. And you probably wouldn't be surprised to hear that it was a beautiful, natural place, but not in Arizona, in Greece, because we're both philosophers and love philosophy. We didn't plan this, by the way. I mean, we had talked about getting married for a while, but it just so happened that we went to Athens, we found the perfect rings, and then we went to Delphi, and Delphi is so beautiful. I mean, it is no accident, I think, that it's often referred to as, the birthplace of philosophy, where the oracle prophesied about Socrates, and you go to this beautiful mountain town. You can see the Gulf of Itea and the Gulf of Corinth in the distance. It sits just below Mount Parnassus. Wonderful, beautiful place. And it fits so well with Sedona philosophy because we're like, of course philosophy happened here, right? Philosophy begins in wonder, and you wonder about the world, about our own existence, I think, like in these beautiful places, right? How did this come to be? What should I be doing here? So, but anyway, it was on a trail in a beautiful place that we got married just about a month ago now, so pretty recently.
And you mentioned the ring.
Yes. So the ring, I got one, and Matt's has the same. It's the meander design, or often known as a Greek key. And this represents like water, which it has a lot of parallels, I think, to the Taoist tradition as well. But it is a symbol of infinity, and it's a very common for Greek wedding bands, not as common in the U.S. But I have one, and then Matt's also has the Greek key around it. So it's known as the meander design, and you'll see it at the top of the Parthenon. You'll see it at the School of Athens and the Vatican. You'll see it, across the Greek and ancient world, everywhere, just symbolizing eternity and the ups and downs of how things go. And so it was just philosophically significant, beautiful, and perfect for us.
That is so amazing. And you and Matt appropriately had a Sedona moment in Greece.
Yes.
You bridged them, you knit them, you created a bond.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, like a Sedona moment in Greece, because that's another thing that we often bring up is that, of course, Sedona is an amazing, beautiful place, and many people come here to visit from all over the world. But this idea of being in nature and being inspired by nature and having insights in nature is something, that we can do anywhere, in the world. It doesn't have to be in Sedona. And these Sedona moments, these coincidences that happily come into our life, also, these happen everywhere. But I do think Sedona moment is the best name.
I love that. Absolutely love that. And I love you, and I love that you were here.
Oh, I love you
so
too.
much for this time.
Oh,
So much.
likewise. Yes.
We'd really like to hear from you about anything this show led you to think about. Write to us at celebratingaz.com. The wizard behind making a conversation into a podcast is Tom Heidinger. The music comes from Daniel Blatney, and I'm Dana Cooper.